In this video, I'm going to talk about whether it's worth investing in the UK banking sector in under 6 minutes. Disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. If you seek financial advice, please see a licensed professional. The financial sector usually offers a very lucrative return, and this is due to higher than average dividends and higher volatility. And it is usually one of the hardest hit sectors in recessions. And currently, since February, some of the UK banks are down around 60 to 80%. So which UK banks can you invest in and should you? And I'm really going to talk about the ones listed in the FTSE 100. I want to go for more globally diverse or stronger businesses. And these businesses are Lloyds, Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC, Barclays and Standard Chartered. I'm going to evaluate the sector as a whole and talk about which of these companies I would more likely to buy very briefly. The UK banking sector, much like Europe's, has really struggled to recover since the 2009 financial recession. And whilst they've undergone new strict rules and regulations, they've not seen much of a recovery. And in fact, it's not entirely their fault, as I imagine the uncertainty around Brexit has also led to drop-off of the banks due to a weakening of the pound. And no one can really predict what Brexit will do. It's so uncertain, anything can happen. And I believe that the banks have been quite closely tied to the pound, so the pound dropping is not good for the UK banks, and they have seen significant share price drops over the last few years. And now with the current pandemic situation, we've certainly seen more sell-off and dividend cuts by the banks, putting them all at a point of extreme value compared to 10 years ago. But is it really value? It's worth noting that Steve Eisman, who is an American investor who made billions from shorting the banks by betting against the American banks in the subprime mortgage crisis, which is in The Big Short, which I definitely recommend you check out. At recent news in 2019, it was stated that Steve Eisman had put a short position on some of the UK banks, and people have predicted it to be things like HSBC, Lloyds and Barclays, for instance. And this is because our banks are 3 to 4 times more leveraged than the American counterparts, and therefore still risky. And this puts them in a much worse of a position financially. And this is a man that has shorted the American banks and made billions, and he wouldn't be afraid to say if there is an issue in the banking system. Please consider subscribing if you want monthly stock picks to watch or to buy and weekly portfolio updates. I believe that Royal Bank of Scotland and Standard Chartered are the banks that will struggle the most. Standard Chartered is overexposed to the Asian market, and I think that market is oversaturated and very hard to grow in. And I think Royal Bank of Scotland is a falling knife that has really not seen its share price recover at all since the financial recession. And purely on that, I think investor sentiment is very low, and therefore I don't see the share price rallying anytime soon. HSBC, however, is one of the most largest and most robust banks that is globally diverse, but they've not really shown initiative or tried to grow their dividends in the last 6 years. And I honestly think they don't have much more room to grow as they've expanded far and wide. All they can really do is hope for interest rates to rise so that they can have more profits as a whole. However, I do think they are one of the least risky banks in the UK sector. And now Lloyds is a bank that has tried to regain its dividend investors over the last few years by slowly regrowing their dividend, and it was going quite well, but their share price has dropped consistently for the last 25 years. And I think that in regard is comparable to RBS, but it has a little bit higher of investor sentiment. However, if Brexit goes well, a soft deal is formed and the UK economy does really well after Brexit, I do think that Lloyds is in one of the best positions to gain, as they are very exposed to the UK market, and their subsidiaries such as Halifax and Bank of Scotland are located all in the UK, so I do think they will gain the most if the UK economy does rise back up. The bank I'm most bullish on is Barclays. They aren't just limited to the UK, but also Asia, and they have plenty of room to grow. Yes, I've said the market is oversaturated, but this is more of a smaller bank. Standard Chartered is pretty much only exposed to Asia. Barclays has got Europe and Asia and the UK. I think they have the potential to grow the most. They've also been trying with their dividends. Yes, there was a large cut from 2009, but every bank did that. They had grown their dividend bit by bit, even if it was at a slow rate. And only recently had they suspended their dividend. They had cut it a few times in recent years, but they'd always paid some form of dividend. So they were always paying to their investors. And I think their investor sentiment is a bit higher on this. It didn't drop as much as Lloyds or RBS, but obviously investor sentiment was higher with HSBC, as that didn't drop as far. Personally, I think you should steer clear of the banking sector in the UK for the time being and wait until the pandemic situation has passed, and also that we get some more clarity on what is going on with the Brexit situation. No doubt, if any good news about Brexit, the banks will rally. But at the moment, I think they're all falling knives and a lot of people are going to lose money, even if they pay a nice dividend yield. You should look for other financial companies, like insurers, for instance, as I think they will do better in the long run. I do, however, believe that they can recover in the future and become once again a staple for UK investors. But that relies on Brexit, and who knows what might happen. And if you've enjoyed the video so far, click the card at the top right of the video to see 5 high yield dividend stocks I'm buying right now. Thank you for watching. I'm Osborne Foreman. Have a great night.